Hello, everybody. It's Untitled for something different. Also Dovey. Starting off with a weekly update opening. Today is April 19th, 2022. 9 years ago. 9 years ago, I had spinal surgery that started off my fight against stage 4 neuroblastoma. And I like to commemorate the day each year just by talking about the journey and how it's been and any additional steps there have been in the interim. Right now, it has the cancer journey itself has a good ending. In that I have been in remission for 3 years now. We'll get to that at the end. I have a list of a timeline because over the years the dates become fuzzy, the years become fuzzy, the events become fuzzy, and that might be the brain's way of trying to heal and move on. It might be a lasting effect of the chemotherapy giving me memory problems and stress and other factors, I guess. Just it doesn't work out. So I like to remember, though. I do these every year to remind myself how far I've come, because sometimes it's really hard to feel the positive side of that. 9 years is a very long time. I'm 31 right now, and that's almost a third of my life. And sometimes it feels like that time's all lost. It's all been wasted. But I try to do these to remind myself that, it wasn't exactly wasted. It was taken from me, but, I put in a lot of effort to get here, and a lot of people put in a lot of effort to help me get here. So I just try to keep a record. And for anybody going through similar things, if I was able to last this long and get through everything, I know that you can. But to start, I'm gonna be brief in certain areas because the videos do get a little samey each year. And if you do want to watch a longer video, I would suggest last year's. I think it was pretty comprehensive. But in 2011, I started getting these headaches that were super migraines. I wasn't able to do anything. And I was in the middle of college at the time. And it destroyed my college semester, and I eventually just had to stop going to school altogether. And we went to specialists and neurologists, and they weren't able to find anything. But it eventually cleared up, went away, and went into 2012. But it cleared up in the springtime of 2011. And 2012, in the summer, I started getting this back pain. This back pain that radiated down my legs, and I figured it's because I was being trying to be more active, and was doing gardening and stuff. It was just maybe I herniated a disc or I strained myself in some way, but it didn't go away, and I have a very high pain tolerance, and I powered through it for several months, and started up college again in fall. and it just started getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And going into 2013, we finally got an x-ray. The x-ray didn't show anything, but that's because we didn't know what we were looking for. And finally I got an MRI, and the MRI showed that there was a tumor in my spine that had fractured outward and was pushing up against my spinal cord, causing me the immense amount of pain. And other tests showed that that wasn't the primary tumor. That was a metastasis. It spread to my spine from my adrenal gland, my left adrenal gland, and that was the original thing. But that was giving me trouble. That the adrenal gland controls your adrenaline and hormones and things, your body's panic response. And when it started getting covered in cancer, in the neuroblastoma, which we later determined it was neuroblastoma, it started going crazy, which is why I was getting headaches. I had super high blood pressure. It was horrible. And eventually the body just closed it off, calcified it, and closed it off, but it was too late because it had spread already at that point. But that's why the headache stopped, because my body cut the adrenal gland off. And so now it was just a tumor kind of in a shell. But it had spread to my hip, it had spread into my bones, into my spine, and the pain that I was feeling was from the tumor growing in my spine and outward. And it was horrible. I was on Percocet, like, as a general pain pill. I was taking it like you would take Tylenol, because it was I guess a lower dose, because I wasn't high all the time, but like that was what I needed to function in school. And eventually we got the test, and it showed that it was a tumor. So in April of 2013, April 19th, I got spinal surgery to remove the tumor, and put rods and screws in my back and try to do a spinal fusion over there, to stabilize the area, because they just had to scoop the tumor out and hollow out the vertebra, and get rid of a couple of my lamina in the process. And I've had those rods and screws in since then. We'll get to that at the end of this video. But obviously that wasn't the end of the process, because that was only to stop my imminent demise. The doctor afterwards said he didn't know how I was standing in the first place with the pressure on my spinal cord from what was going on. Like I said, I have a very high pain tolerance, but I was in a lot of pain even through the painkillers. But yeah, so they let me gave me a month to heal from the surgery itself, and then they put me on heavy chemotherapy. I had to go to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia for treatment, because neuroblastoma is generally only seen in infants, rarely seen in children under 10, and very rarely in teenagers, and not seen in adults. I got this when I was diagnosed in 2013, so I was 22. I was one of 5 adult patients in the world with neuroblastoma, so I had to find the specialist who happened to live in work in Philadelphia, in the Children's Hospital. So Dr. John Maris, and He has been my primary doctor for all this time, my oncologist. But so he put me on heavy chemotherapy treatment between May and August, where it would be like a week in the hospital of getting heavy chemo pumped into me. I had to get a central line put in, a Broviac line, which is tubes coming out of your chest, because it was either that or get IVs every time I had to come into the hospital, and I was going to be getting treatment fairly regularly, so that was the best way to do it. I still have I call it my second belly button. This dot over here, that's from the Broviac. You can't really see it because I'm not going right up to the camera, but it looks like a belly button. It's just indented, scarred skin because I had that line in for years, and the area just it grew around it essentially. So when they took it out, there was just a big healed up scar that had to close at the bottom. So yeah, I have two belly buttons. So that was a way for them to get the medication into me easily. But because of it, I couldn't shower. I couldn't get it wet. I had to have this dressing on it all the time to make sure, because it's a hole into your body. So if that gets infected, it's a line into your arteries, like it goes to your heart. So if that gets infected, you will die, unless you get it taken care of immediately. So I always had to make sure that it wasn't like there wasn't any pus or anything coming out of it. Like, I had to be very vigilant in looking at it all the time. I had to get the dressing changed once a week. If I sweated a lot, I had to get it changed sooner. So I couldn't do things that would cause me to sweat for years. Or I just had to change it myself a lot if we went like to Florida or something. I had like a nurse that would come in every week to change it and flush it to make sure that it didn't get clogged up, because if it clotted, then they would have to change it also, and that would be a problem because I needed. That's how they took blood out and put stuff in. It was a difficult thing, but so I would be in the hospital for a week, just getting chemo every day, and then I would go home feeling horrible, and I would just sit there and wait, because what the chemotherapy does is that it attacks rapidly dividing cells. Cancer divides very rapidly, so chemotherapy is very good for attacking cancer. The unfortunate thing is that your body has 3 other types of cells that divide rapidly: hair cells, intestinal wall cells, because it's constantly being bombarded by acids, so they have to keep replenishing themselves, and bone marrow, blood, because your blood constantly needs to refresh itself as well, and your hair is constantly growing. So when you get chemotherapy, your hair falls out because those cells are just all dead. They get destroyed. You get sick because all of a sudden now your body, your intestines are being attacked by acid. You're being attacked by bacteria that was getting blocked before, and everything else, and the area itself is under attack, so you feel horrible, and your blood dies. So most cancer patients that get chemo become anemic, and so your immunity goes down because your white blood cells die. Your platelets go down, so get a cut and you just start bleeding, so you have to make sure if you have a nosebleed that it gets taken care of immediately, or any other injuries to make sure that you get hit like this, nothing happens. You have cancer, you get hit like this, the next day your arm is a black and blue mark. And your hemoglobin, your red blood cells go down, and your hemoglobin takes air to the rest of your body. So, that's, as that goes down, it gets harder to breathe, and you just take a breath and you don't feel it. So, but the big problem is, they can do transfusions for blood, red blood, if they need to. Platelet transfusions they do too, but those don't really last. But the big problem is the immunity dropping, being immunocompromised and immunosuppressed. So you sit at home and you feel worse and worse and worse as your blood counts drop, because the chemo starts taking effect after it's been in your system for a few days. And you just sit there and you wait, and you feel like you're dying, because you are. And you have no energy, because your body is now fighting this thing that's killing anything that's trying to grow. And you wait and you hope that you don't start running a fever, because as soon as your white blood cells start to die off, everything that's been in your system stops getting cleaned out. So like clockwork, almost every time, few days pass, 2 or 3 days, eventually start resting, because the hospital is not a place for you to get rest, and temperature goes up and starts going up and up and up, and as soon as it gets to a certain point, you go right back in the hospital, because they need to pump you full of antibiotics before you die, because your body will not fight off that infection. It won't. It can't. It literally can't. So each time I would be back in the hospital, and they don't let you out until your blood counts come up. So I'd be back in the hospital for another week, another 2 weeks. And a month after the treatment, you'd be back in for the next set. And it was just 4 treatments I had. After the second one, they did a stem cell harvest, which was actually eventually used years later. They can harvest stem cells through your blood now, as opposed to other means. It's very interesting. But I had I think it was on this side. I keep forgetting which side. Yeah, it's right there. It was on this side, right? So I had to go like that. I had a very large IV put into my artery here, because because they need to do it at high speeds, and it's the only high speed artery they can get to, and sit really still in a bed for several hours twice as they harvested stem cells. On the first day they did not get too much, and the second day they got more, thankfully. But that was in case my blood got so bad from a treatment at one point that my body wasn't actually able to start replenishing itself. They had a supply of cells that would kickstart the process, and keep me alive long enough for my body to actually start working again. And we didn't need that until 2019. But getting ahead of myself. I said this would be a shorter video, and we're already at 20 minutes. Going into different detail, I guess. The actual events, I don't know, it feels different every single year. Some years the pain and the memories come back a lot more viscerally because of whatever happened that year. Some years the other, I don't know, there's just other things that you remember every single time. But after the 4th round of chemo, and that one, I had already lost I don't know, I want to say I lost 60 pounds from not eating at that point. They finally found a medication, an antidepressant that also makes you get the munchies, something fierce. And so I was eating again. I was eating anything and everything, and eventually I had to get off of that because I gained a lot of weight back. But after the fourth round of heavy chemo, they did another set of scans, and the cancer had grown a little bit, which means it wasn't responding to conventional treatment. So we went into the realm of experimental treatments, and we would be in that for the rest. This was in August 2013. We would be on the experimental side of treatments for the remainder of my time fighting cancer. I was at the forefront of neuroblastoma treatments. They actually changed a lot of the stuff while I was there, partly because of the things that I responded to, but also just because the science was changing. It was very interesting. Completely unattached level. It was fascinating to see the evolving science. So I started this trial of a thing called Millennium, and it was a 3-week cycle where it was a pill, and I would take the Millennium pills for 9 days, I want to say 9 or 11 days, and I would also have 5 days of an IV chemo along with that, and a pill chemo, and I would continue taking the Millennium afterward, after that 5 days, and it would be like a week of chemo, and then 2 weeks off, and then a week of chemo and 2 weeks off, a 3-week cycle, and that lasted for 2 years, or a year and a half. And the Millennium didn't kill the cancer, but the regular scans that I got showed that it had stopped spreading. So it wasn't making it go away, but at the very least it was halting it, and that was good enough for us because we realized that I'd be in this for the long haul. It wasn't going to go away with aggressive treatment. We had to keep something that let me live in somewhat decent fashion. Around the time that I had started the getting the pain is when I started Let's Playing, and it's intrinsically connected. That I found Let's Plays when I was struggling, and I found people like Chugga Conroy and H.C. Bailey and Oofy Bong, and I would watch their stuff all the time. And Let's Plays was the escape for me. It was what I needed to get out of the horrible pain that I was in, and it still is. I'm still Let's Playing now, and it's still my escape. It's harder to do sometimes than others because of current pain, but I owe a lot to that. But so being on this cycle let me keep up to a regular schedule on that. In February 2015, February is a very cursed month for me. It's when things go wrong. February 2015, I also, along with the Millennium, I had to take a pill called cefpodoxime, which was a antibiotic. It was an antibiotic because when you're on chemo constantly, it destroys your body's ability to get rid of bacteria in your intestines. So when you're on this stuff, you get really, and I'm sorry for being graphic, you get really horrible diarrhea, like having to go every 20 minutes every day, and it hurts. And so if you're not on the cefpodoxime when you're on the chemo, you are just in the bathroom all the time, and that was the unfortunate thing that we found out. I eventually just had to stay on the cefpodoxime for several years also every day, because otherwise I would, if I missed it or if I didn't take it and didn't build it up in my system before starting chemo, just horrible diarrhea all the time, every day, and it was the most painful thing. But so February, I got something changed, and I was still going to the bathroom. This horrible, actual gut-wrenching pain. So we went to the hospital, and I got it's called a C. diff infection. It's a type of bacteria or something, but it's brutal because it's very untreatable. So they eventually just had to keep me on various antibiotics in the hospital. I was there for a solid month, until they could get the diarrhea under control. I was constantly on fluids because I was dehydrating like crazy. They had to give me this medication that like actually shuts off your intestines from working. Like it makes you stop going to the bathroom, because that was the only way to get my body to like give it some time to get out of the cycle. Like it was a hard stop. But of course you can't leave the hospital when you're getting that, because as soon as you leave, it's done, and we don't know what's going to happen when it gets back. So we had to like spend a week, everything turned off. I couldn't eat or anything because it was just too much. And then slowly easing off on the medication so that I could, and also that medication made me throw up. So, and just slowly eased off of that. And eventually I left the hospital. And we decided to stop the Millennium at that point, because we think that that's what just being on it all the time helps trigger the infection and stuff. And just looking at some of the other people who get C. diff infections, being in the hospital for a month is a short amount of time. So I guess I was lucky. But we moved to trying out gene therapy, which is certain medications that are targeted towards the genes that the cancer has. After doing gene sequencing on the biopsies that they had, from what they removed already, they tried to find medications that would fight it, and eventually they gave me one that's actually normally used for kidney donors, which is an immuno inhibitor for that, but it for some reason has an effect on my type of neuroblastoma. So that replaced the Millennium, and I was still getting the intravenous chemo outpatient for a few days a week, and also pill chemotherapy for a few days a week. That was now the new 3-week cycle. I didn't react well at first to some of the medications, so they changed it to a different version that I reacted better to. All this time my hair had been out because of the chemotherapy, but my hair started growing back a little bit in April of 2015, because it was apparently the Millennium that had knocked it or kept it out after I stopped the heavy chemotherapy, because the irinotecan and the temozolomide that I was taking weren't strong enough, I guess. So that continued on until 2016. In the beginning of 2016, I had the Broviac taken out because the only real reason I had it in for 3 years was in case I needed heavier chemo, but we figured that wasn't going to happen again, because I just didn't react to it well, and we were going to be taking this lighter stuff for a longer time, so having something that was an extra danger of getting infected was not a good idea. So I had the Broviac taken out, and I had a port put in, and a port goes under your skin, and that's this scar over here was the surgical scar, and this over here was kind of the part of the surgery. But yeah, so it was like a little disc that kind of looked like the end of a stethoscope under my skin. It was mostly flat, but you could feel it if you put your hand over it. It was not fun to lay on, and I had that in for a few years. But that was better for, I could shower again because the skin was closed. For the first time in 3 years, I could shower. I was, whenever they had to draw blood or give me the irinotecan, I had to put like a numbing cream over it, and they just put these like long type of needles specifically for ports in, and it was attached to blood supply, so it would have to just go through a bit of skin, but it was usually not painful. Usually. Depended on how well the person did and how many times they had to stick me, because my veins are so hard to get to, and apparently the port was following their guidance. But yeah, I'm a pincushion. But yeah, so I had that, and that went on for a while. In May of that year, I went off of the gene meds because more or less we saw that it wasn't like doing anything, and we wanted to look into other options. So we stopped with the irinotecan, we stopped with the temozolomide, because we wanted to give my body a little bit of a break before trying anything else. To make sure that if we tried anything else, we could say that its efficiency was because of the new treatment and not as a lasting result. But also just because I wasn't doing too well. I had a scan in August of 2016 that wasn't great. So we decided instead of trying a new medication, we would go for radiation, and this type of radiation was internal radiation as opposed to external. External is where they fire a beam at you. Internal is where they hook you up to an IV and they pump you full of radioactive fluid and then pump it out as fast as possible. Like they give you the radioactive injection, and then they have these giant things of water that they have a machine that just pushes it through. You go to the bathroom a lot because you want to flush out as much of that radiation as possible so it doesn't kill you. But it sticks in the appropriate places. And the whole room is covered in plastic and things, and the clothes that you bring with you have to be destroyed because you're radioactive. Everyone has to wear like gloves and boots, and the stuff that you touch has to be like triple wrapped. Because your sweat is radioactive. It was a nightmare and very weird, and there was a lot of parts of it that I'm not going to talk about because they make me extremely uncomfortable even thinking about it. But we had that in September of 2016, the round of radiation, and essentially it's 1 day of radiation, and then they bring a Geiger counter and wait until your body is not emitting or emits a low enough amount of radiation that they can send you home safely to be around other humans. So it took like 5 or 6 or 7 days usually to get the radiation down, and you just have to sit there and wait. It didn't make me feel as sick as the chemo for a long term, but it did not make me feel good. And so it went well, and the radiation has the exact same effect as the chemotherapy as well, in that it kills your blood. It doesn't go for the hair as much. No, it doesn't go for the hair as much, but it kills your blood. So you have to watch your blood numbers, and my blood dropped a lot, and I had to go and get red blood cell transfusions, because it was a lot worse than the chemo. It was like I was gasping. But eventually your blood starts working again. And in February of 2016, I got another round of it, and that one didn't go well. I mean, the thing itself went well, but a few things had happened at that time also. I had a toothache. I had a tooth that needed a root canal, so the area had gotten really painful and infected. So I was in agony the whole time that was there. They eventually had to give me like really strong painkillers just for the tooth thing. So I got the root canal eventually, like afterward, but just the chemo, the radiation did a number on me, and I just got worse, and it I wasn't recovering. My blood was just dying. I had to get a lot of transfusions. I had to get a lot of platelet transfusions. I went to MagFest in the middle of all this, and that was interesting. I would lay in bed shivering like this because my body wasn't getting warm. There was like the lack of circulation. I had gotten a transfusion on the way to MagFest. We stopped off at the hospital and went down a red blood transfusion. But yeah, I was horribly anemic the whole time. It wasn't fun. It was nice to see people. It was a good MagFest. Aside from that, I was just walking around like a zombie because I was on Benadryl, and also because I couldn't breathe or have energy. But so the doctors decided not to give me a third round of this radiation, and we had waited this long to do the radiation because once you do it, you don't do it again. This type of radiation treatment, it's a one-time, like, you can do it twice in a row or 3 times in a row, but never again, because it just doesn't work. So we decided after that, instead of doing a third round of that, we would go to immunotherapy. And wouldn't you know it, the month we chose for it was a February. So February 2017, I got immunotherapy, and it was see, I want to say it was the worst experience of my life, but my brain has mostly blocked it out. I only have I only have my notes to remind me, and the weekly updates, that I didn't talk about it too much because I missed a whole lot of weeks then. I don't remember what I haven't written down or what people haven't told me afterwards, because it's been it was so like traumatic that I can't feel it anymore. But I feel like if it's bad enough that I actually blocked it out and not any of this other stuff, that it's the worst experience of my life. But my surgery last August is a close second. Although I didn't almost die in that one. But the immunotherapy happened. Immediately, it was painful. It was horrible. Like, it was a horrible experience in the hospital. It was immunotherapy that makes all of your pain cells just scream. All of your nerves scream all over your body. So everything, you can feel everything hurting. And I had a nerve blocker that I was supposed to start taking, but they didn't give it to me soon enough, so it didn't start working. It needs like a few weeks to go, but I only was able to get it like a week before the treatment, so it hadn't started working yet. So I was in agony, and I was there for a few days, and they let me go home. And at home, everything, and I was still taking the nerve blocker. Everything hurt. I was curled up in my bed from the pain. I had developed like these purple blotches, and my dad has a picture somewhere. I think I wasn't of any presence of mind to record how it looked, but I had these blotches, these big purple blotches all over my back. It looked like I was like I don't know, leprosy or something. It was just like mottled things everywhere, and the doctors were like, that's not supposed to happen. And I started getting hypersensitive to sound, to temperature, specifically anything above, like my if this is cold and this is hot, and this is how a human normally feels things, cold, hot, it moved down like this. So hot was now lukewarm, and cold was now heat death of the universe. I couldn't touch cold water. I couldn't touch room temperature water because it felt like my hands were being dipped in dry ice. Like I feel like I was getting frostbite. I was constantly bundled and things. I had to get a heater moved up to my room, like a portable heater, to make the room over 80 degrees at all times, because anything less than that, I was freezing. Like I couldn't drink cold water because I could feel the shards. I couldn't drink lukewarm water. That was like too cold for me. The shards were just going down my throat. So it was horrible, and I was at home. I couldn't eat or drink or anything, and I started just feeling like I was dying. And like when you're feeling really sick or whatever, you're like, oh man, I'm dying, it's horrible. But like, I can't describe it. Like, I can't describe it. It doesn't feel like you're horribly sick. It feels like you are dying. Like your body has given up. It's done. It's being overwhelmed and shutting down. And we went back to the hospital because I was unable to do anything. And they hooked me up to IVs and stuff so that I could get nutrition and things and be wrapped up. And I was there for a while, and yeah, I almost died. I was I want to say the closest I've come to dying that I had nothing to do with. I had, at that point, I had really just given up completely and said, this is it. This is it for me. But I eventually recovered, and so the doctor said, okay, so what we're going to do now is, obviously we're never doing immunotherapy again, but we think that based on the scans that we have of you, that we can try to take out the primary tumor. We think it's dead enough to take out, and we can take out the metastasis that's on your hip as well, or as much of it as we can. They're not going into the bone there, but it grew around my hip bone. So we decided to do that the next month. It's actually a week before Passover that year. So at the end of March 2017, I got abdominal surgery, and I'm not going to show you the scar there. I have a big scar over here and a big jagged scar above my hip of where they did the surgery, and they took out the primary tumor. It's gone. There's nothing there now. And they took out as much as they could of the other site. And all in all, the recovery for that was actually pretty easy. That was one of the easiest surgeries I had. It was major. It took a while to recover because they have to go through your muscle, but it was pretty easy. And they took another scan in May of 2017, and surprisingly, there was nothing to show for it. The areas on my hip were very light. My spine still showed a little bit, but that was residual dead stuff. And the big problem with a lot of the scans that I got is that the cancer cells that I had when they died, they didn't go away. They just turned into scar tissue. But the scar tissue, for some reason that they still have not determined to this day, still uptake the dye so that they glow on certain scans. We don't know why, but we had to move on to different types of scans, and so they do different types of scans now for neuroblastoma because I showed that wasn't always a very good diagnostic thing. But the so they said that I'm in remission with big quotations because they wanted to wait and see, make sure that things that have been going back, and they wanted to continue treatment to make sure that everything stays dead wherever it is. So I started another treatment of this thing called fenretinide, which was it made into a powder that I had to eat/drink, mix into a drink. Kind of tasted like Tang, and that was meant to prevent the cancer cells from regrowing. It was like a super dose of vitamin A type of thing. One of the side effects of that is that it made my skin super sensitive to light. I became a vampire, but I would get sunburned from being near the sun, so I couldn't go outside or had to wear long sleeves or stuff. It made my skin super sensitive also in terms of blisters, so I would just get blisters from walking. And I didn't know it would do this, and I did a lot of walking after my first round of eating that stuff, and my toenails fell off because I was walking too much. I got these giant blisters that just made the bottoms of my feet into giant blisters. It was like the bottom of my foot, this the whole palm part of your foot, under the toes, It was horrible. And it also attacks your eyes because your eyes use vitamin A to help you see. So this thing was taking up all the slots there so that my eyes weren't getting, the vitamin A that it needs. So like, like in a video game, I hate using this. So like in a video game that your character gets a lot of damage. You're playing Uncharted, right? And your character gets a lot of damage, and you get like that halo of red and black around you, right? And it like so that's what it was. It wasn't red, it was black. But like my eyesight just had like a dark. Well, I guess it was more like this, but because of your brain, it was just like a dark halo that I couldn't see. And I had no night vision, which means at nighttime I would go blind. So like if it got any like a little bit dark, it would be like wearing sunglasses like all the time. But at night, when you wear your sunglasses at night, so like I would get freaked out because like I would be sitting at the table or whatever with people, and the light would be on, but since there's no light coming in the windows, it's just like everything is dark. So obviously I couldn't do driving or anything, but like it was absolutely horrifying. So I started taking something else. It was like a vitamin A thing or whatever to counteract that for my eyes, and it kind of worked, but not really. But yeah, so I took that for a while, and September of that year they said like, it's working. You're definitely in remission. I don't count that as when I was in remission because I was still getting treatments. I count it from when treatment stopped. But we decided that since like I wasn't getting any, I hadn't gotten any injection treatments in a while, and I wasn't going to because the immunotherapy and the radiation injections were all done, and I wasn't getting chemotherapy like irinotecan anymore. We decided to get the port out. So I got that out in December of 2017. So it was a total of about 4.5 years that I had something sticking out of my chest. So I haven't had that in for 5 years now, or 4 years in a few months. We tried out new meds in January of 2018. That did not work. It got me really sick. We decided to just let my body rest for a while. So, we started up a new types of meds though after that were once again like the gene therapy types of things. It might have still been on the fenretinide actually, but it was like just capsules and stuff. But by August of 2018, we decided that we're gonna stop chemo altogether. So the capsules and things that I was taking, that's when it stopped. So the last time I took chemotherapy drugs was August 2018. In December of 2018, we decided to do one more hurrah of external radiation, beam therapy, which I got there, and I got that through January, and we worked around MagFest that year also, MagFest 2019, which MagFest 2019 was that my favorite one? It might have been my favorite one. I don't know. I have very good memories of that one. But yeah, the external radiation was nowhere near as bad as the internal. It makes you really tired, but you don't lose your hair. Oh yeah, also from the immunotherapy, all my hair fell out because of just the shock to my body. They're like, yeah, there's a little bit of chemo that they use, but immunotherapy doesn't make your hair fall out. All my hair fell out because my body was just like. But sitting here for an hour, hurting my back, something fierce. But yeah, so that was the radiation. So yeah, they had to like mark. I have a whole bunch of dot tattoos all over my body now that are just never gonna go away. Which they helped to calibrate the machine to the certain areas, but the radiation went well. Yeah, it was thankfully uneventful. In April of 2019, they, after getting some scans, they officially declared that I'm in remission, and that's where I count it from. So 3 years ago, where they're like, "Yep, that's it. We're not doing therapy anymore. We're good." I was getting. I was taking Lyrica at the time because I was getting some just side effects of stuff, but yeah, I don't count that as my medication. I was just having the immunotherapy gave me like permanent sensory problems. The chemotherapy gave me permanent intestinal problems. Like I just have a lot of gas and a lot of acid problems with food. Like I'm constantly burping, where I just wasn't before, no matter what I eat. And I usually cut it out of my Let's Play videos, but sometimes you just hear me go, "Erp!" That's because I just have a constant reflux. In September of 2019, they started giving me scans less frequently. Instead of every 3 months, it was every 4 months. Right now, it's every 6 months. Yeah, so that was like decided also in February of 2020. And in that time, like I wasn't on therapy or anything, so I was actually able to try to like start getting my life together. The problem is that like throughout all this time, I've had back pain, and the back pain is because I have rods and screws in my back. The rods and screws were there to stabilize my back for the fusion, but we took scans and the fusion didn't work. The one I got in 2013 didn't work. It didn't fuse because right after getting that surgery, I got chemotherapy, and the chemotherapy targets rapidly dividing cells, which means the bones don't grow. So the bones didn't fuse. So it never worked, and the bones there died. So all those years, I had back pain because the area wasn't fused, and I had rods and screws that were slowly loosening. And in mid 2020, it started getting really bad, and it was debilitatingly bad. So we decided to, in December of 2020, we decided to get surgery to replace the screws and just tighten everything up, try to redo the fusion. So I got that surgery, and we in 2021 we went to 6-month visits instead of every 4 months, and the back surgery would take about half a year before I could actually do anything. But while it lasted about 4 months, and then the pain started back up again, and this was around the time that we were getting ready to move. So the pain started getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and we decided, okay, so we have to do something about this. And by the time insurance got around to it, it was late August, and I got another surgery. And this time it was not just a redo of the fusion, they took the fibula out of my leg and an artery and hooked it up to the area of the fusion, and they attached it over there, made a huge incision over here so that they could plug two ends of the artery together to feed the bone so that the bone would grow, and use that as the fusion so that living bone was there instead of hoping that dead bone would work. And they also tightened the screws up. So that was a very difficult surgery. And I went home with a whole bunch of drains sticking out of me, and my leg had to be wrapped up for a month in ace bandages because taking an artery out of your leg means that the liquid, that your body normally, I can never remember the word, your liquid accumulates in your body. Your blood cells take all that fluid and they get rid of it. But when you're missing an artery, which is a major blood vessel, your body can't do that, and it has to it has nothing to get all that stuff out, so your leg swells up. So we needed to keep my leg wrapped tightly while my body compensated, and it still hasn't. I got that surgery at the end of August, and it is April now, and my leg is not as swollen as it was then. No. But it still swells up, and you can see that when I take my socks off, there's like stuff. So it's just swelling because it can't get rid of the stuff. But yeah, the surgery was supposed to be 6-hour surgery and ended up being 12 hours, and then they kept me sedated and kept the tube in my throat for another 12 hours because of how hard it was on my body. So I didn't wake up till the next day. I kind of remember waking up like a little bit and just being aware of having the tube in my throat still, and them being like, yeah, we're just gonna keep it, and then going back to sleep. Yeah, so that was crazy, and I had like this huge something on my chin, it was like all worn away and bloody, and just from, I guess, laying in a certain position, and I had an allergic reaction to some of the adhesives that they used on my legs and my chest right over here. So now I just have like a big dark patch here and a lot of loss of sensation because it damaged the nerves. So like this is numb, and my thighs are numb, and my leg is numb from where they did the surgery, and my back is numb where they did the surgery there, and this area is numb, but not the fun type of numb. And yeah, it was just, it's been hell recovering from that, but I eventually recovered from it, and I was feeling pretty good. And then the back pain came back, and here we are now. I got a CT, and it showed that the screws are kind of loose, but like nothing dangerously so. The CT also showed that the fibula died, which means that the graft failed. And they told us it was like a 98% chance of it working. So I can't tell you how upsetting that is, that all the trauma to my body was for a fibula that lasted a few months and died. It kind of fused, so it was at least better than the other ones, but right now I'm in a lot of pain. I'm stuck in my room, and it's last year when I made this, I think I had a more hopeful outlook, but right now I'm just in a lot of pain. I've been in a lot of pain, and the past couple months have been horrible. Our plan is in a month from today-ish, or a month from 2 days ago, to get the rods and the screws removed entirely, because obviously something's not working with them, and they're just going to keep getting loose. and I don't want to keep having back surgery to tighten them up and replace the screws. So we're just going to take it out entirely, hope that the area has fused enough, and hope that that's the only thing that was causing me pain. So if that's what the problem was, then taking them out will just get rid of the problem and it will never come back. We just hope that other problems don't crop up. So maybe next year we'll be talking about how that went. But the surgery will be a lot easier, and the recovery will be definitely a lot easier. But yeah, there's just... that was a lot of the physical problems. I don't talk about a lot of the psychological problems because it's very personal. But I'm going to go in here because I remember one year, maybe last year, somebody asked me to go into it a little. So if you don't want to hear like the mental health part of things, thank you for watching and listening. But yeah, I guess to hear the physical details, not the mental details, but different people are different. So obviously being, a cancer patient is it's weird to talk about this because like I feel very detached from saying so, and it's hard to sound sincere, I guess, or to give the feeling. But like being a cancer patient, you just feel like your life is over. My whole life was a 3-week cycle of feeling terrible, recovering, and feeling okay for several years. It really, I just felt like it was going to go on forever, that it was never going to get better, that I was just going to be fighting this thing forever. It's been 10 years since the pain started. 9 years since we started fighting it, but over 10 years since the pain started, and I still have the pain from it. And it robbed me of my ability to go to school, to concentrate, to remember things. I couldn't remember the day of the week. I had to go to my friends and be like, hey, I'm gonna probably ask you tomorrow and the next day and the day after several times, what day of the week is it, because I will not understand what it is. And I would spend every day actually concerned, not where am I, but when am I? For so long. And I still have memory problems. I still have problems with word association, and just remembering anything that happened during those years. And before is kind of foggy too. And that's maybe a passage of time thing, but people that I met online here, you guys, they talk about man, remember when we first met with their other friends, remember when we first met and X, Y, and Z, and man, it's such a great memory, and what was your first impression of me? And I don't remember anything. The only way I remember is if I write these things down and I look at it and I say, haha, this is my memory. But does it trigger something in my head? No, it doesn't. And it pains me because do my friends think I don't care about them when they reference something, or they're trying to be haha, remember the good times? And I'm I don't. And I feel like I lost a great part of my life that is not going to come back. I don't cry when I think about the physical pain I got, because it's the physical pain that I had is done. The emotional pain, it doesn't leave. I feel depressed when I think about the other stuff. But one of the big things also that chemotherapy does, unfortunately, is that it attacks your reproductive capabilities. I have some frozen stuff from before we started chemotherapy, but even then, like, the cancer itself had severely diminished my capacity to do anything in that regard. So what they collected was a bare minimum, so that's not even like a it's not even a guarantee of being usable. But I haven't taken any tests because I'm scared to. Like, I haven't tried to see if I still have the ability to have kids, because I don't know if I want to know. If it's still gone. A lot of my friends are there's two things I heard me, and it's a me thing. It's not a them thing. But when I see my peers from high school, from college, that have all gone and gotten jobs and graduated already. They're getting married and having kids, and I'm so happy for them. But I just know that it's not going to happen for me, or it might not happen for me. Right now, I don't think so. I'm not particularly a good match, especially in Jewish circles where having cancer in the first place is not something that will get you a good dating profile. But I don't have a job. I don't have a life. I don't have the capability to do things. But to not be able to have kids, I can't. That's just excluding me from even thinking about getting married. But there's that, and then there's the people online. They're like, I hate kids. I'll never have them. Like, I never want to have them. And I'm just like, man, at least you can have that choice. I would love to have kids. Like, if I was well enough, I would be spoiling my nephews like crazy. I want to be the cool uncle that takes them on trips and shows them all the cool stuff. And I can't, though. Like, I'm physically incapable of having like trips or being out and doing stuff. Maybe that'll change with the back pain stopping after the surgery, but like, everyone knows me as the cancer patient. They know that I have the back pain. Some people still talk in hushed tones around me because I was so sensitive to sound and smell, and my taste buds have changed completely. And I still am sensitive to sound and smell, just not to the point of anxiety. Now it just bothers me. But I don't know if I'm ever going to have kids of my own. And I could adopt, but like, I like my family genes. My family, I don't know, there's good people in my family, and I would love to be part of that next generation. I don't know if like I would be emotionally okay with adopting, but that's, I guess, not something that I need to think about at the moment. But I don't know if that's ever just gonna happen for me, and knowing that kills me, because I know some people don't want to have kids, and that's fine. I know some people can't have kids also, and they don't want to have kids. Some people can't have kids and they want to have kids. But personally, like, I didn't get that choice, and like, some of my friends from high school have several kids now, and they have lives and they're happy, and I'm very happy for them, but it still hurts. And you just, every time I get a surgery, and there's been so many, and things get better, and then something happens and it fails or it gets worse, and you just have to wonder, is this ever going to end? And the answer that I've had for the past month is I have no idea. I have no idea if I'm ever going to have a life. And that's what I've been living with for 9 years. That's why I've stuck so much to doing art and to YouTube, because that's my replacement for having a life. I'm not popular, so like I'm not getting money out of it. Getting a little bit of money off of Patreon, but not enough to like live anywhere. And I just have enough to buy video games. Like the money that I make off of anything is nothing. It's not livable in any way, shape, or form. You know, I'm not one of those people that can make it a job. So this is just a hobby that's been keeping me entertained while I do nothing. And you know, my brother's 11 years younger than me. He's in his second semester of college now. I've taken 3-ish semesters of college, so you know, he's so much further in life than I am, and I had such a head start. And you know, I try to read his textbooks because he's taking psychology also, and I get the ideas, but like, do I remember things? Can I take a test? No. Can I sit through class? Absolutely not. My concentration is broken. My ability to sit is just because my back is awful. Like I could never sit in a college classroom chair. Online courses are difficult too because they make you sit there, and like doing anything for over an hour, I'm gonna have to lay down after this video because I'm in so much pain right now. So like I can't go back to college, and I just got kicked off of disability, so we're trying to appeal that because apparently I'm perfectly fine and not disabled anymore. And yeah, I was feeling pretty good after this past surgery. After it started getting better, I was getting hope, but I lost that hope, and I really hope that after the rods are removed that nothing comes up again, because it's been so difficult. It's not the weight of the back pain coming back, it's the weight of 9 years of subjecting my body to poisons and radiation and medication and atrophy and just so much abuse and surgery and trauma. And you have to wonder, like, the reason that I'm doing this is because I don't want to die. That's why you fight cancers, because you don't want to die. But then you ask yourself, like, what is the actual purpose of it? Like, what's the end game? If the end game of all this is I don't want to die, then I don't think that it's really worth it. And I'm really sorry if that's like super depressing. There's so much, and I was in therapy for several years for all this, and that had to stop when COVID hit because I hate phone call therapy appointments. Like, it doesn't do anything for me. It makes me feel worse. I need to see people face to face, which is why I like doing YouTube vlogs. So I'm looking at, you, I guess. But, not dying isn't a goal in life. It's a means, and I need an end. Otherwise, there's no purpose for the means, and I don't know what that end is yet. And I thought I was getting there, but before all this, I was starting to take psychology courses, and I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. I wanted to help people, and instead I've become what you see here, which some people might like, some people might not care about. But do I like who I am after all of this? I don't think so. Is it who I am? Yes. Is it who I was? No. None of us are who we are 10 years ago. Do I think I changed for the better? Mostly no. I look at some of the things I said like 10 years ago, and I'm glad that I grew up from then. But I don't think that I'm the same. I don't think I have the same capacity as a human that I did. And I think that a lot of that is just because it's been beaten out of me by not being able to do things. Not being able to help people because you can't help yourself. Having to avoid helping or doing or situations because of a fear of pain and sickness. And I don't like who I am now because of just all this time and an inability to realize what I believe is my potential and the permanent traumas to me physically and mentally because of it. And I don't know how long it's going to take to get past all that if I do. If I ever do get married, then I'll have to figure out, if I want to have kids and if I want to try to have kids in some way. And by then, how old am I going to be? How old would my wife be? Having kids in your late 30s, early 40s, can have its own problems. But it's going to take me so long to be able to even get to that point. Because I can't marry someone without the ability to support them. And I've been mooching off my parents for all these years. My dad's had to not seek work because he's been my personal caretaker all this time. He drives me to all my appointments, and he takes care of insurance and talking to doctors and disability. He's been on top of everything. So my life has been his life. So he it's affecting him. It affects the people I know. But that's a little bit of just a little taste of the emotional baggage that has come with all these years. So, is the cancer gone? Yeah. It didn't show up on the CT scan I got in January. There was nothing there. The cancer is gone. But there's so much more still to deal with now, and so many years to undo. It's a big task. But I appreciate, even if I don't have a lot of hope in myself, I appreciate everyone who has helped me to this point. There's friends, family, people online here, doctors. There's been so many people praying for me, helping me physically, emotionally, raising money for us. It's been amazing to see at least a little bit of the good side of humanity coming from all this. if I have one thing in my legacy, is that I've had people who have, gone out of their own personal bubbles to try to donate to charities or start fundraisers or things like that, and affect good in the world around them or to the people around them. Not necessarily for myself, but I feel like at least my pain is somewhat good if I have, or somewhat has a purpose if I have helped to make other people increase the amount of good in the world. I hope that the Dovia that I am now, whoever it is able to, work harder at keeping people to do good. Because I feel like out of all the things that I've done, that's really the only purpose I have in my life, is seeing to it that people try to improve themselves and improve the lives of the people around them. Because I need to live vicariously through them. I can't really do much to improve my own life right now. But it makes me happy to see people doing good things and being nice to each other, giving each other the benefit of the doubt, and just making the world a little better and closer, one person at a time. But yeah, that's a little off topic, I guess. But yeah, here's hoping that next year, when we talk about 10 years since the start of the fight, I can tell you, as I've said in the past 3 or 4 years now, here's hoping next year I can tell you there's been nothing to report this year. I'm like a half hour over where I was last year, and I don't know how. But yeah, so there's just a little bit of the emotional baggage. I don't like talking about it too much because I feel like it becomes a pity party, and pity is one of the most painful things you can experience from someone, because it lessens you as a human being. And when you have people that kind of look at you like, oh, he's the cancer kid, it makes you feel less than a human. It does. And on the other hand, I feel terrible not acknowledging it, because that's been my life. That's who I am. Unfortunately, it is a part of me. And to pretend that it wasn't there negates a lot of the experience that I've had. And it doesn't explain to people why I act the way I do. But to say like, hey, I've been going through this for 9 years, gives people a little context to why I'm unresponsive or overreactive or depressed or anything. And it's a game of how much do I want to let this be a part of my life, and I don't know what the answer to that is. But yeah, so there's a little bit of talk. If you've listened, thank you for listening. If you want to just keep I don't have a lesson for this. Thank you for listening. And hopefully we'll meet again next year. Goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.